start off my presentation with a question. So we're here as college students pursuing a higher education. How many of you guys are here because you wanted to find a higher paying job or get a stable career in the future? Pretty sure most of us are. How would you feel if you were denied that opportunity? The reason I'm asking is because there are prisoners today that are being denied that chance. To provide some background, according to the U.S. Bureau of Justice Statistics, the number of prisoners within the United States in the 1980s was about 500,000. That number has now increased to about 2.3 million, which means that it has increased about 4 times as much. In 1994, the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act was passed by Congress, which became controversial regarding the increasing number of the prison inmates. A section of this act overturned the portion of the Higher Education Act in 1965, which permitted inmates to receive a Pell Grant for higher education while they were incarcerated. Pell Grants are basically defined as providing financial assistance to lower income students. The portion of the act that overturned this Higher Education Act of 1965 specifically states, no basic grant shall be awarded under this subpart to any individual who is incarcerated in any federal or state penal institution. What this means is that the funding for correctional education decreased, and the act effectively eliminated the ability of these lower income student inmates to receive college educations while they are in prison, which also meant that their educational level would not have improved over the course of them being in prison. And they would also lack any qualifications and skills that they would have been able to learn upon their release. Arguments against this higher education in prisons believe that we shouldn't be paying for these incarcerated individuals to go to school since they don't really deserve it. However, by the end of my speech, I hope that I'm able to have convinced all of you of the importance of implementing these higher educational programs within prisons, and we'll discuss its impact through cost effectiveness, a reduction in recidivism, which is basically defined as being a person's relapse into criminal behavior, as well as the personal development of these inmates. So the first reason that we should allow these inmates to receive a higher education in prison is because of the fact that they are cost effective. According to a report from the Hamilton Project at the Brookings Institution, the United States spends about $80 billion on correction. Providing a degree to an inmate would cost between about $2,000 to $3,782, while the price of incarcerating that same individual, should they return again, would be between $32,000 to $40,000. Each dollar spent on incarceration will reduce costs by $4 to $5 for each individual during their first 3 years, which is the period that they're most likely to return. Altogether, about $1 million spent on correctional education prevents about 600 crimes, comparing to $1 million that's already being spent on it and only prevents about 350 crimes. So this means that it's almost 2 times as cost effective to spend on these higher educational programs. In a similar way, this leads me to my second point, which is giving these inmates access to a higher education would lead eventually to reductions in recidivism. As I stated earlier, it was basically a person's relapse into criminal behavior. According to a research analyst from the Federal Bureau of Prisons, he found in his study that the higher level of education was completed, the lower the rate of recidivism was. If one of the goals is to reduce recidivism, there should also be some support programs to support them in continuing their education and helping them to find a job. In relation, this then leads me to my third point, which is the overall personal development of the individual. Receiving a higher education would help these inmates to escape the cycles of poverty and violence that they've been stuck in throughout most of their lives. In addition, these individuals would have the chance to help with the trauma that may have affected them while they were incarcerated. Receiving such an education would be rehabilitative, therapeutic, and stimulate creativity. To further prove the impact of this, an analysis done by the individuals from the Institute for Higher Education Policy found that 75% of ex-cons with college educations are able to find stable jobs after their release. And finally, by being employed, they're more likely to stay out of prison, which would reduce the amount of mass incarceration. To reinstate my claim, these inmates do deserve the chance to receive a higher education because they have proved to be cost-effective, reduce recidivism, and aid in their personal development. If we continue to avoid helping rehabilitate these individuals, they are extremely likely to return, and this will contribute to the increasing number of those incarcerated. Fortunately, the Restoring Education and Learning Act proposed by Congresswoman Donna Edwards is working towards reinstating these programs for them. Furthermore, at the executive level, the Obama administration is working with the Department of Education on this thing called the Second Chance Pell Test, which allows a limited number of individuals to receive a Pell Grant. Finally, providing these inmates with that opportunity to have a second chance is one of the first steps that we need to take in order to decrease violence and ultimately lead us to becoming a better society.
All right, I like the audience survey and kind of the way you got involved in the subject. I do think you don't want to wait too long for answers because speculation leads people down other paths and you lose a little bit of control of the audience's interest there. But you did a good job setting it up. The best thing in the speech, I think, is the explanation about why this is a controversy. You've got information about the growth of the prison population. You have a reference to the specific law that was passed in 1994 that stopped providing Pell Grants to prisoners, and you refer to that change that specifically excluding prisoners from this opportunity. And then you make an argument that says that's a mistake. Yeah, and you're going to talk about the importance of this, which is not really a propositional claim. It's just kind of a subject, and you need a more clear declarative sentence. So I know what the topic is, I know what direction you're going, but I don't really have the declarative that we're looking for. The secondary points in the preview are, they list the subject matter, but none of them are stated as declarative sentences. However, when you get to the body of the speech, most of those points are then turned into declaratives, which helps make your argument a heck of a lot clearer, so we know exactly what the conclusion is that you're drawing on each of these points. I thought you had pretty good evidence, although it seemed a little bit thin on a couple of the points. You had like one or two pieces of information on each of the first 2 points. And the third point, it seemed like it was a little bit more developed, and there was some nice statistical information that talked about what the benefits would be there in the long run, and I think that that's where the argument is the strongest. You want to be careful at the end of the speech about rolling into a policy claim, but I did think that your summary was pretty effective about how this is supposed to work. All right, thank you.